Love city living? Singapore Property Show presents stunning developments in the core central region. The ultimate in luxurious living with access to the best high-end restaurants and boutiques right in the heart of town. Experience stunning 4D virtual tours of these properties and get expert advice on property investments at our webinars. It's all happening at sps2021.99.co. Register now. The Singapore Property Show 2021 is proudly organised by MediaCorp and our esteemed partners.
This segment is brought to you by Xeon Corporation.
In business tonight, Greenpeace is calling on China's internet firms to commit to clean energy sources. The environmental group estimates the sector alone is likely to consume more electricity than all of Australia in 2023. Last year, China's data centres and 5G base stations sourced 60% of the electricity they used from coal-fired power stations. Their energy consumption could quadruple by 2035. China has pledged to bring total greenhouse gas emissions to a peak by 2030. It's directed industrial sectors to use more renewable energy. The order would also apply to data centres, but carbon dioxide from the internet sector could continue to rise. Greenpeace says the tech sector is one of the fastest growing sources of climate warming. It says explosive digitalisation need not lead to higher emissions. Indian conglomerate Tata has taken a majority stake in an Alibaba-backed online grocer. Tata Digital will own 64.3% of Big Basket. The acquisition is worth about $1.3 billion. Tata's purchase puts it in direct competition with Amazon.com, Flipkart, and Reliance Industries. E-commerce sales, particularly of food and groceries, have jumped in India due to the pandemic. Tata is looking to expand into new areas with plans to launch a super app to tie in with all of its consumer businesses. Australia is hoping to have China's tariffs on barley imports declared illegal. Canberra is asking the World Trade Organization to set up a dispute settlement panel. And that's the next step in the WTO's dispute resolution process. Australia launched a formal appeal to the WTO late last year. It says China's decision to impose an 80% tax on barley imports has effectively halted the grain trade. But Beijing argues that Australian farmers produce barley with government subsidies and sell it below cost. They insist that's unfair to Chinese barley farmers. Australia's barley exports to China had been worth around $1 billion a year. There's a long list of political-tinged trade disputes between the two countries. At least 13 Australia sectors have been subject to Chinese tariffs or some kind of disruption, including beef, coal, and wine. And that's your business update. Back to you, Dawn.
Eugenia, thank you. Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai will have to spend more time in jail. He's been sentenced to an extra 14 months for attending illegal protests 2 years ago. Lai is already serving a 14-month sentence for taking part in other unauthorized assemblies. 6 months of the latest sentence will run consecutively, meaning that his stay in prison will be extended to 20 months. 7 other Hong Kong opposition activists have also been jailed for up to 18 months. As Roland Lim reports, China has been clamping down on dissent in the city.
Beijing labels Jimmy Lai a traitor after his frequent visits to Washington to meet officials like former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo to rally support for democracy in Hong Kong. Former lawmakers Lee Chok-yan, Leong Kok-hong and Sid Ho, who also pleaded guilty, are already serving prison terms in relation to other cases. The other 6, including ex-lawmaker Albert Ho and Yong Sam, have also had their bail revoked and are currently remanded in custody. The arrests and subsequent convictions of dozens of pro-democracy activists is fallout from the 2019 anti-government protests, which started out as opposition against an extradition bill which the government later withdrew, but led to the worst crisis the city had ever seen since the handover. Roland Lim, CNA, Hong Kong.
Coronavirus vaccine supplies and the raw materials to make them are expected to top the agenda when India's Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar meets his US counterpart Antony Blinken. It's the first trip by an Indian minister to Washington since President Joe Biden took office. Neha Punia has more.
Ross of Commerce here. And
the Indian Foreign Minister has a packed schedule ahead of him. He's expected to meet US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on Friday, and the two are likely to discuss, among other things, security in the Indo-Pacific and the Quad initiative that's aimed at countering China's growing influence in the region. The US has said it is keen to convene an in-person meeting of Quad members, including Australia, India and Japan later this year. There are also meetings scheduled with Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and US Trade Representative Catherine Tai. The Indian Foreign Minister's visit comes at a time when New Delhi has clashed with US tech giants like Facebook and Twitter over new social media rules, but top of the agenda is going to be vaccine cooperation. While India's daily COVID-19 caseload has dipped, the country is still recording more infections and deaths than any other country in the world, and despite being the world's largest vaccine manufacturer, India's own vaccination drive has failed to take off due to severe shortages. Only 3% of all Indians are fully vaccinated. Which is why experts say New Delhi will be hoping that the Biden administration will release a large chunk of its spare vaccines to India. The US plans to export 80 million doses from its stockpile by June to needy countries. Talks are also expected to cover the smoothing of exports of raw materials that India needs to scale up vaccine production at home. More than 200 ingredients come to the country from the US. Last month, caving under increasing public criticism, the Biden administration finally loosened restrictions on the export of vaccine raw materials, but domestic companies say supplies are still erratic. Reports suggest that the Indian Foreign Minister might also hold a meeting with Pfizer representatives. India's emergency authorization to that vaccine has been pending because of the US drug maker's insistence that its company get legal protection in the event of any adverse reactions from its vaccine. Neha Punia, CNA, New Delhi.
Still to come, fears of a major environmental disaster as a container ship burns off Sri Lanka's coast. And scenes straight out of a horror story as millions of mice infest farmland in Australia.
Should you use your CPF for property investment? Come to the Singapore Property Show 2021 to learn more from leading property market experts in 40 informative webinars. Our top flight speakers will be covering a wide range of topics to help you make a most informed decision. How do you make the most of your CPF for property investment? Are ECs still the golden goose? Is owning multiple properties only for the wealthy? What kind of property is in demand by district? Get these answers and more. Plus, stand to win $8,000 worth of cash prizes. Join us at our webinars this weekend on 29th and 30th May for essential property investment advice. What are you waiting for? Visit sps2021.99.co to register now. The Singapore Property Show 2021 is proudly organised by MediaCorp and our esteemed partners.
I'm getting my COVID-19 vaccine.
Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in.
And documenting all my side effects.
Bam, the soreness set in.
But with cases of infection among those who are vaccinated, how protected am I?
Now what we're seeing are actually mutants, which are quite different from the original strand.
Talking Point, tonight, 9:30 p.m. on CNA.
What are the financial forces driving Asia's rise, from transnational business expansions and technology for digital growth to untapped opportunities in the region and beyond? Understand the trends, innovations and corporate deals that are building Asia. On Asia First, Monday mornings on CNA.